All right, thanks everyone for joining. We appreciate all of our customers, all of our vendors, all of our potential future customers for joining this webinar. We're going to get into the habit of doing a webinar monthly, but this is going to be our annual turn recap. We usually do this individually with our clients anyway. So this is just going to be us bringing some of our data to the public sector. And we're excited to see how it goes. We're excited to show some detailed analytics on the properties. We're excited to show some detailed analytics on the vendors and get your guys' questions. And if you have any questions or anything like that during this webinar, feel free to put it into the chat. So my name is Chase Minifield. I'm CEO and co-founder of EasyOS. Today we have an agenda that looks like myself. I'm going to give you guys the full turn overview, just high level numbers and data. We then going to bring Corey, our VP of Customer Success, in here to talk about property trends, NOI, any of the high level details when it comes to pricing that he has seen over this past 2025 year. Then Lincoln, he's going to come in. Lincoln's our COO and co-founder. He's going to come in and talk to the vendor side and discuss things that he's seen, training vendors, seeing how properties have worked alongside vendors and all the data that he's been able to accumulate over this 2025. And then we'll answer questions from everyone. Feel free to put the questions in the chat while we're going through this, and we'll answer all questions in real time or at the end of this session. So as they come up, pop them in the chat. We'll read them off at the end, and we will have answers for you, hopefully. So property data. So the data that we're looking at today is specifically around our purpose-built off-campus student housing, the data set, which is about 413 properties over 30 states. And this does not discount that we still work with the universities, right? We have about 8 to 10 universities that utilize our platform during turn, year round for maintenance service requests. Some of them use them for that, inspections, etc., damages. But this data set does not include that specific information. This data set is just built off-campus student housing and looking at some of the data behind those things. Just to give you guys an idea, Florida is our largest state where we have the most properties, and that is actually a 42 property space. So this is just some high-level data, high-level analytics. 56% of our properties utilize the damage feature. There's over 107,000 damages that were collected in our platform. These damages are collected in our inspection, and then they are synced to the Entrada platform or to the FMO for whatever your PMS system is. That was over 12.2 million. We've seen this trend go up and up and up over the last few years of our damages being and our inspection feature being used at the move out process. We think this is where a lot of our clients find a lot of cost savings. And actually, I think some of our clients would say that this actually pays for our product in full time because they're able to collect damages more efficiently. So we're excited to see this usage go up. 6% is at all-time high. It's probably around like 35, 33% last year. So we're excited to see that trend continue. Work orders, we had over 171,000 work orders scheduled out on our platform. That was over $21 million of actual forecasted work. We had 94% turn usage. So that's 94% of our properties actually built a turn board, scheduled out their turn, and executed the turn in that space. We had 9% change orders. So this is where we want to kind of see the change orders take on that same trend that we've seen with damages, where hopefully this continues to go up and up and up. We view change orders as a process that will bring everything together. We think the people that utilize change orders are some of our best users in our system when it comes to vendors and property. So we want to continue to push from our training side and from just the properties buying in and the vendors buying in to utilize the change orders feature, because I think overall it'll kind of put a button on everything when it comes to overall experience, having a great experience inside of the EasyOS system. So this is the high level data. I'm going to invite Corey to the stage, and he is going to take it from here. So let me get Corey.
All right, everyone. Thank you, sir. My name is Corey. For those of you that don't know me, I am the VP of Customer Success for EasyOS. We're going to go over two things from my end. One thing I kind of enjoy, which are the numbers, and one thing I really enjoy, which are the trends. So the first thing that we'll kind of dive into it, and if you're our customer, you got our end of the year summary that has all of your specific numbers for all of your properties, in addition to kind of our state numbers. But to kind of break those down a little bit, and we typically just focus on paint and clean, partially because carpet clean doesn't vary very much, and then partially because a lot of people are getting away from carpet, so the numbers can be a little skewed just because there's not that many places that have carpet anymore. But our first spot is our paint. These are our bed, bath, and common area prices. You see our average for this year versus our average on years prior. Everything obviously has gone up a little bit. More significantly have probably been the bedrooms, but again, I think you'll see our averages here in a little bit. Not anything out of the realm of abnormal. Paint's kind of consistent across the board. The one thing that where we have seen a significant jump, particularly over the last couple years, has been our clean price. Our clean prices, as you'll see here, our bed prices jumped over $30 per bed across the board. And bathrooms have kind of stayed the same. Common areas almost up to $50. And we've seen that trend over the last 2 to 3 years. I'm sure you guys have seen it in your budgeting and your the invoices coming in. And so when we break that down and we look at our percentages, our paint percentages, again, right around 30%, and that's been pretty consistent post-COVID, those times when we couldn't get paint anywhere. Now that that's pretty much back to normal, those have kind of leveled out. But the clean prices have pretty significantly jumped over the past couple years. And having a CEO that works for also a turn cleaning company, as well as myself once working for a turn cleaning company, we tend to see it's harder to staff. Cleaning is very labor intensive. Not to say our painters aren't out there killing it; they're doing really well. But clean tends to be harder to staff. And you can't just throw anybody that's done this. You can't just throw somebody into an apartment with a mop and say you got this. There is a skill to cleaning, and so to find good, consistent cleaners, you all know that's the hardest vendor to staff. And just because of that, the prices have gone up year over year. I wouldn't be shocked to see them go up again next year. And so, because of that, our big note, budget accordingly. Your paint's probably going to be consistent year over year with your increase. Your clean could jump even higher, so keep an eye on that. And then a quick look at some of the pricing that we get. Most of you, again, if you're customers, you have already seen this. We sent this to you, but this is what we're seeing across the board. Paint clean and carpet clean costs. Like I mentioned, the carpet cleans are a little hit and miss just because there's not that many people doing that anymore. So this is information we get every year that we send out to our customers. Help you guys, make sure that your prices are in line. Those of you that are our customers as well know that we've got our market analytics tool on the vendor page to where you can zero down even past state to specific cities or markets that your sites are in. Look at the average pricing by service, by bed, by unit for those particular markets, and make sure that your properties are in line with that pricing. So it's a quick run through the numbers. Again, you guys have most of these numbers in there. Budgeting, I know, is coming up, so just keep that in mind. Now we can kind of jump to what I enjoy, which is the trends. These are things that we have a unique perspective of because there are very few vendors, very few businesses out there that get to watch plan turn with multiple companies. So you guys may know what's happening at your site, within your company, but I get to see. I think this year I worked with 7 different companies, as big as 200 properties, as small as 4 properties. So we kind of get to see the gamut of everything that's going on, and I can pick trends out of that you may have experienced or you may not have. But the first one, and really the only bad one from this year that we saw, was the GM turnover rate in July rose significantly. We saw a ton of instances where GMs putting in their 2 weeks, I guess just trying to get out of there prior to turn. I'm not sure what would have caused that across the board because I didn't see anything that was happening differently. But in 2024, we saw 12 within our properties resignations in July, and that number over doubled this year. And you may wonder, that's a weird stat for you guys to keep. It is, but it's one of our more important stats because we know that those properties need immediate assistance, both from the regional side and both from the on-site side. And we're excited that our product actually helps with that process. Because if you have your turn set up, and you'll see of the 26 that did leave, 20 already had turns scheduled. You don't have to be there for our turn to run, especially as a regional manager. You don't need, because everything is automated, and because you schedule out your turn, and then your vendors can see what they're doing the first day. They show up. They don't need somebody handing them a piece of paper with their list of units. They can go do their thing. And then your on-site team doesn't have to know, oh gosh, what units are we doing today? They can find it, but they don't necessarily have to notice it, because when the vendor is done on their app and they hit complete on their app, the quality control walk generates and art shows them exactly what units are done. So they just have to sit there and follow. So one of the benefits that we see year over year is, a GM quits on move out day, and we hear from the regional, and they're like, I'm booking a flight. It's going to take me 2 days, and we can say, hey, we'll monitor it. We'll watch your damages, make sure they're getting done. We'll watch your vendors, make sure they're starting. Don't freak out. Like, I know you're freaking out, but take your time getting there, because this turn will run. Everything's scheduled. It will go whether you're there or not, and we can help make sure of that. So, and as you'll see, we also prioritize those in our audit process to make sure that those are running. So again, that is bad. It's not as detrimental as it has been in years prior, partly because it's going to run without it, partly because even if you have these 6 turns that had nothing scheduled, we have an auto scheduler, and our auto scheduling blew through the roof this year. We did roll it out a little bit later last year, but we saw over a 300% increase in properties that were auto scheduling their turns. And what's great about this is, we can go from literally nothing. You log on your site, nothing's been planned, nothing's been scheduled. We build your schedule, sync your schedule to your PMS system. It's going to bring in your vacants, your renewals, your transfer ins, your transfer outs, and then we auto schedule. We can auto schedule your vendors. Anybody that's done it knows it's very easy, very self-explanatory. Just put in your worker, your vendors, and the days you want to start and the days you want them to be done, and run it, and it's going to schedule that out for you. So these sites where we did have a GM leave 5 days before turn, nothing scheduled, everybody's kind of freaking out, we'll hop in and schedule that for you. Get it done. Your vendors are updated automatically on their apps. They can go in and do that. So the GM's leaving is always scary, but it's not as scary as it used to be, again, because the auto scheduling helps, and the vendors know exactly what they're doing, and they can go in and get that done. And kind of following that line, speaking of our vendors, one of the trends that we really noticed this year is the vendors did great. Go backs is a widely used feature in our system, and we can track those as well. And we noticed this year that the go backs were down significantly this year to the years prior, despite an increase of the properties using it. We had more properties use go backs than ever before, but they were submitting far less, which means their vendors were doing much better. And that's great, because that's what hopefully the system is doing for the vendors and for the property, is streamlining this process, making it to where once we get started, we can kind of zoom through the system and not have to worry about it. Because the vendors were doing well and our vendor usage was up, our vendor ratings by the GM, and all of you know that if you archive your schedule, you get to rate your vendors to see how they did. The vendor ratings rose into the 90th percentile this year, which is fantastic, which means the property was happy, the vendors did well. Hopefully turn was a little less stressful because of all of this. And so it got us kind of thinking, this is awesome, everybody's doing well. Was there anything that we saw different or just something that hadn't happened before that would have helped with this? And there were 2 things that really stuck out. The very first thing being, and this is something that, I was a GM for 15 years before being here for 5 years. I've never seen what happened this year, which is vendors were turning rooms over the summer that were vacant, but it was the vendors doing it. Anybody that has done this in years prior, we would know that, yes, we got some rooms open, let's turn them, but it's typically in-house, and typically your maintenance team's going to go maintenance it, put a paint on it, maybe bring the cleaner in and take care of that. Well, this year, for whatever reason, we saw a lot of vendors being willing to say, hey, you got 5 rooms for me, it's June, yeah, I'll pop out there and do that. Which is great. That that obviously lessens the load. That also gives you guys a chance to work with your vendors in a much lower stress situation. on the quality control, making sure that they know what they're supposed to be doing, making sure they're doing correctly, to where when we do get into the fog of turn, after move out day and everybody's freaking out and our pets' heads are falling off, your vendors already know what they're doing because they took the summer essentially training for that moment. So that was great. It was widespread enough that we are actually creating a tool to help track it. We typically would just kind of track the unit. We did obviously have the rooms in there, but we never had an instance where we might have to push bed C all the way to the invoice state while the other beds are still unassigned. We never had that before, but we had so much of it this year that we're going to create a tool that where you can do that, where we can potentially help them invoice in the summer, help the vendor get a little bit of money for turn, help you keep track of the things that your vendors are doing throughout the summer, not just during that 14, 15, 16 day period. So that was one thing that we saw that we think really helped our turns run more smoothly. The other thing, and this is a little silly thing, but it is year over year we see it, the day that move out day falls on. Year over year, that day can make a big difference, because any of you that have students at college know that if July 31st falls on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday or even a Friday, I'm probably not going to take off work to go help you move. I'm going to do it the weekend prior. I don't have to take off work. It's just 3-4 days. You can come home with me or whatever for the summer. So because of that, in July 31st falling on a Thursday this year, we saw a lot of turns being able to start early. We saw a lot of, it says right there, our move out inspections are kind of how we track when people are starting turn. And we had 75% of them completed the Sunday prior to Thursday's move out day. And that's just because, again, it's more advantageous for a parent to help their student move out on the weekend prior. And so what does that do? That lets our vendors get started a couple days early. That helps our on-site staff get used to the process a couple days early prior to what would be a very busy move out day. So it gives us a couple 4, 5, 6 days of a head start. And anybody that thinks that I'm doing well, we're ahead, man, that makes turn a lot easier. It makes the experience a lot better. So that is a big deal. And speaking of our on-site staff, one other thing that we noticed, our late nights were down. One of the things that you all know that we do is we have a digital quality control checklist. When a vendor finishes their unit, you use your app, you go check that room. If it's good, you hit approve. If it's bad, you hit go back. Well, we track the time that those are clicked. We track it within your time zone. And so what we actually saw were approved and go back work orders completed after 6 p.m., meaning that our work orders that where we hit complete after 6 p.m., meaning we were there late, fell down below 50% for the first time ever. And that means that more of our staffs were caught up. They weren't out there walking. They were able to go home. They were able to hopefully save some sanity, but they were able to, and most importantly, they were able to keep their overtime numbers down. And so, because you can follow behind those vendors immediately, now you don't have to wait till 5 o'clock when they bring you a list and then you spend your night walking. You follow behind them the second they're done. When they're done at 5 o'clock, you're done at 5 o'clock. And this is where, some folks will ask us how does Easy Turn save us money? Obviously, we're helping you hopefully avoid the dreaded bad turn that then becomes bad PR, that then becomes 2 years of leasing trouble. But if you want to see it directly on the numbers, check your overtime numbers, because with being able to walk directly behind these vendors as soon as they're done, we're hopefully helping you keep those overtime numbers down, especially for any temp help you may have, and keeping those down. And hopefully you'll see that again this year. So what can we take from these trends that we saw last year and apply to next year? First one, obviously, is budgeting. As I mentioned, you guys are probably doing budgeting now. You've seen the increase in cleaning, particularly. Keep an eye on that, because there's nothing that I can tell that would suggest that that's going to change. So you may want to look at those cleaning numbers. If you're bumping things up 3, 4, 5%, you may take a look at that and say, yeah, let's give us a little bit more. The other thing, hopefully this doesn't continue, but I really don't know why it happened, is the GM's, the turnover. We always suggest, one of our things is we want we want our best users to be the regionals, because if something does go sideways from your computer, you can keep your eye on 6, 7, 8 properties at a time, and you can help run that one. You can help make sure that things are going through. We do have companies where the regionals run the turn remotely. So we want your people to be able to do that. We want your on-site staff to be able to do that. I always say, plan for the worst. So if the worst happens, you got to plan. So that would be a training focus in 2026. Another one, speak with your vendors about their summer turn capabilities. If that's something they're willing to do, which I've never seen that before, but if that is something they're willing to do, let's talk about it. Let's get you guys in here a little early. Let's lessen the load on our full turn by having you all knock out some of these rooms early. So check with them on that. Another thing to plan on, and again, I think it's silly, but it really makes sense. Move out day is Friday next year. July 31st is a Friday. I would suspect that means a busy weekend prior and another early start. It's not one day to move out. Most of our leases, at least where I've been, the move out time is noon. Dad's not showing up Friday at 8 a.m. to be out by noon. I know my kids well enough that they are not packed yet no matter what. So I'm going to be there that weekend prior. So plan on a busy weekend that weekend before, and hopefully a head start on your turn. Because of that, look for some savings in overtime, because hopefully we can get an early start, get a lot of those units started and walked during the week, during our normal 40-hour time, during the week prior to the Friday move out, and try and save some savings there. And then the last thing we saw it right at the end of turn. If you have California properties, call us. This new move-in inspection rule where photos have to be taken and documented of the unit prior to the resident accepting it. We have set up numerous inspections for that. Whether you want just an inspection that you're not syncing onto your PMS system, we can build that for you. Go in, take a picture of everything. We've got it saved. If you do want them synced to your PMS system, we have properties that are using our damage feature for this. They put in a $0 damage. It'll sync onto their ledger, be there forever as their photos of the previous state, the move-in state of the unit. So if you do have California properties, I think it's also maybe Seattle, anywhere where they're requiring this additional step, call us, because we do have the capability to help you with that and help streamline that process. I know the last thing you want to do is run through those rooms again, but when you're doing your Sparkle Walk, take those photos. We can sync them for you if you need to and help you out with that. So that's all I have for the trends. Again, some of it's really weird, really goofy, but it is stuff that if you know about it, I think it can help you guys going into next year. So at this point, I'm going to pitch it over to Lincoln, and he is going to go over the more of the vendor side of what we saw this year and things that are going on within.
All right, everybody. Yep, as he said. I am Lincoln. Corey, appreciate it. Thanks for those trends. These are things that we've always loved because, as I tell everyone I talk to, we're not just here for the job. We're kind of genuinely a combination of adrenaline junkies and analytic geeks. We're okay with that, but we love looking at trends, right? Trends should set what you do. We do it in forecasting. We should do it in operations as well. We really have a system put together to where we collect a lot of data points. So if you're newer to our system, you might not even have gotten to see the full depth. And so some of this data we might be sharing, you're like, I didn't even know you all collected that. But we collect a lot of data, and we do that because people are creative with how they use that data. They have different wants. They have different takeaways they want from our system. So it's really nice that we get to pull this data and actually bring you all what we see as a very unique set of information that you would not normally have. As Corey mentioned earlier, he worked with several different companies. I also worked with a large amount of companies, and over the years, 70 some different companies, it feels like, between universities, off campus, and everything in between. It's funny, right? So the common pain points are usually pretty similar, but it's interesting to see different ways people go to solve the things that they come across. So again, we try to pull data to not make everyone the exact same, but to let them use any point of data they want to better help them prepare for the next year operationally. I'm going to go ahead and start taking through my portion, which is vendors. So he got the property side, and I'm going to take you all. We do have some vendors attending and definitely some vendors that are asking for a copy of this webinar. So I'm going to talk to vendors for a little bit, but all data that would still be valuable, whether you're on site as well. I think it's important that both sides know what's going on in the other on the other side, because it can help paint a better picture of first off, why do we exist? Why is there a desire for our product? Period. When we started this 8 years ago now, people, they didn't know what they didn't know, right? So the fact that we've been able to come in, the main thing we did was build a bridge between vendors and sites for accountability, for clarity, to speed up the process for all of it. So take you through some of this vendor performance analytics that we have here. Objectives, we're just going to kind of go over. First off, what's kind of fun for end of year is showing our top users in our different areas. Really, it's like top solid users, right? So like the ones that vendors are actually using it properly and getting in the system. So we like to kind of give a shout out to those individuals, and we like to break them up by region, so then we can see our growth in the different regions. As Chase went over earlier with the different numbers we have, this really allows you to kind of see the growth all the way around. And I am going, just so you all know, off of the origin state, meaning if a company is out of Texas, for example, and they do a lot of work in South Carolina, we're attributing that to Texas just because that's the way that we collect the data where they're headquartered out of. So we've got that. We've got, the evolution of the vendor, which I think has been, again, a position or a take that we're able to have that is pretty unique. Because, again, I said we work, Chase mentioned earlier, we work with a few hundred properties, but we also work with thousands, literally thousands of vendors. So we get to really kind of see what's happened over this evolution. And for those that don't know, I've been in student housing since 2009. So I've been around it for quite a while, and I've gotten to see also, from bidding in 2009 to bidding now, the whole thing looks completely different, which is a good thing. And I'll kind of get into why I think that's a good thing. And then we're going to kind of be talking really to the vendors about, things that we're doing to help out. As I mentioned before, we're not a product unless vendors are in our system utilizing it. That's one of the, we have some sites, we still give good analytics on the site alone, but we're a so much better product, I'll say, when vendors are utilizing it. And we give really good data to the vendor and to the sites. It's available to both sides. We are not a company that's just heavy-handed on being only advantageous to the sites. If you want it and know where to find it, which we're happy to show you, there's a lot of really, really good data we have on the vendor side that can help you all a lot with forecasting, seeing where adjustments need to be made based on feedback from go backs or whatnot to help you better prepare your team for the next year. Vice versa, if you're on site, you have better verbiage and a picture collage of what items you sent back for a lot the year before that you can then go show either your existing vendor or a new vendor to say, hey, by the way, these are our pain points, right, from last year's turn. I joke about this, but it's so true. If you go to about any, GM, PM, whatever they're all called now, it's all over the place. But you go to any of them, they have their kind of pet peeve thing they look for when they're checking rooms. When I was in the military, we had a thing called white glove inspection, where they literally have a white glove, and they always famously hit like above door frames, right? So that's a famous one from there. But me, similarly, fan blades. My team's heard me say it 1,000 times. I hate dirty fan blades only because it perpetuates more work. So you clean everything but the fan blade, wipe the fan blade. Now it's all over your bed. And as you all know, those mattresses that are static to that dirt, it gets everywhere. And then my other one is mini blinds. I don't think those are unique ones, but those are mine. I know some people care more about other items, but these are the kind of data points that we collect uniquely across a country that we can show what causes most go backs. How do we prevent them moving forward? How can we better prepare our teams to prevent the go back? Go back is rework in my mind, right? You're going back to a unit again, and then sometimes it's a double go back. You're going to go back there again. Yes, you want to get your money's worth, but you're also losing money every time you spend man hours on going into those units and making them go back as well. You can be burning efficiency. So we want to get into the training, some changes that we've made in our training, just things that we want to let you all know that are available. Change orders. Going last, you kind of get people take a little bits of it. He talked on change orders, some Chase did. I'm going to take you a little farther into change orders on how it really does benefit, and then show off some new features we have. So we're going to kick off, like I said, with our different regions we have, right? So it's a weird division, but as I look through the data, the best way to do it was Northeast, Southeast, Central, and then West Coast. So that's how I have these split up. So these are just a couple of our top users in the area. These people are thousands of of work orders, we call them in our system, right? Deep, right? And there's a reason for all this, right? We're giving shout outs to people that work hard in our system and work hard in general. Pole Pro, WeClean Plus, SFS, Multi Services, NNE, Coit, right? There's some national companies in here as well because they get used nationally and heavily. American Turnkey here we have, and these are percentages of the boost of work orders we have in those regions since last year. So 12%, 9%. Southeast has always been a really strong area for us. As Chase mentioned earlier, Florida is our largest batch of them. But we have a lot in Georgia. We have a lot in Alabama. North Carolina obviously is big in the student housing realm. And I threw Kentucky in there for Southeast just because we're in the SEC, right? We're about as far north as you can be in the SEC, but I threw us in there as well. So that's these two regions here. And again, I'm going to kind of talk more about this as I get to the end here. Central top users. Look right here, the heavy hitters out of Texas, right? Like the Property Doctors, Turnkey Solutions, RBS Improvements. Again, this is something I'm going to get into here about multi-service companies. West Coast, we got Arc Builders, JD, Carpet Cleaning and Painting, which they've been with us probably since the beginning. And Landcore, these are all still strong users who are there. And these are large companies, and some of these are a couple kind of, I won't say smaller, but they're more specific, right? Some of these are just painters, just cleaners, just carpet cleaners, as you saw in some of those. But it takes me to the next thing, our vendor evolution, right? So I said I've been doing this since 2009, but even prior to that, I worked in settings where I had to hire vendors, right? So I've kind of seen, especially in the construction realm, right, this evolution that's happening. And so it used to be so mom and pop across the board, right? And then what happens first? Phase one are franchises, right? These mom and pops now fall under the umbrella of a franchise. You saw that starting to happen. And so a little protection for them, little boost in, advertising, maybe some business in January, February when it's rough. They kind of went into that franchise model. And so we see so many less now. There's less vendors on our vendor list as the years go on, even though we're growing. And a lot of it is because of these two things. We're seeing more student turn focused vendors. We're seeing that in two fronts. We're seeing some single service vendors who are just changing their model. And what blows my mind are some of these are not using a bunch of subs. Some are using subs, and that's always gets a bad connotation. But if you vet your subs, you can get really, really strong subs that are good vendors, good workers. They just come on and help you during the turn time. So we're seeing more of these single service vendors, but they're more turn focused. They speak turn to the vendors. They understand the process. They understand the billing. And a lot of these have a little more grace because we know how invoicing and stuff can be, which is also, I'll also get to later about one of the big pros that we have at EasyOS is the way that we handle our invoicing to help speed up that process. You want to at least be the top invoice waiting for payment, right? And we can really show how our system can help do that. So that's the evolution. Again, more turn specific, not only the language, but just like in general, they understand the time frame. They will throw bodies at you. I'll tell you the easiest way to tell that this has been the case. There are a small handful of companies still doing this, and doesn't mean they're doing it wrong. They're probably being safer and smarter in some capacities than everybody else, or I wouldn't say smarter, but I would say braver, more brave. I think it's a word. But when I started off student housing, I had to have 3 painters, 3 cleaners, and 3 carpet cleaners for my site that was just over 500 beds. I had to have it. I had to do my meetings with all of them. I'm talking 9 vendors I had to juggle on what's relatively a medium size property, right? So I'm sitting here dealing and sending out different messages. This is all pre-EasyOS. I'm calling him, checking in on him, walking behind him. Did you do this one? No, this vendor did it. No, this vendor did it. And now we have so many people where we have something, for those that know, it's called, the my vendor, or the vendor tab under my team. And there'll be 2, 3 tops, in a lot of cases, vendors in the system because they're using these multi-service vendors. Or these single service ones. I think the faith in them have grown over the years because they get the job, they understand it. But reasons for this on the bottom I have here. The standards have changed. Everyone's sharpening their pencil. If you talk to a regular mom and pop and say, hey, you're going to go clean, 220, beds, they're going to think of what their normal price is to go to a single bed put a little discount on there and go. But they understand the quantity game, these turn vendors do. They understand that it's go in there, get it done. And I say this, and no one's allowed to say this out loud, right? But in reality, our turn product, we're looking at, if I hired a regular cleaner, I'd want A plus, right? I think a lot of us can live with that B plus, B, A minus-y type finished product. And when they understand that it's about speed, quantity, effort, being willing to come back and touch it up again, they're able to kind of compete a little more on pricing, especially with quantity brought into the fact. So again, this evolution has happened because we've raised our standards. We need you to get together. We want to make it simpler. We've got forecasting we need to get done. We can't have you say, I think it's going to be about 30 grand, and then you're billing out 72 grand. Another thing our system is great for is actually having people know the real cost. I joke about it. When I was a GM, I used to borderline make up some of those numbers. I'd look at the last year's, add a little percent, and say, this is it for this year, right? So then it looks really bad when you're asking for another 20, 30 grand. And it even looks worse if after that you then go ask for another 5 grand. It's a terrible feeling. I've also been higher up in that chain to where people have come to me with that. So it's tough all the way up. All right. And so, and of course the competition for third-party managers, right? They all want to show they can do it efficiently and well. Hey, you know why we can do this for a cheaper budget? Because we've got better connections with vendors, right? We understand what's going on. We can have people come in and do better work. Another really cool thing about this has been that, again, regionally where people couldn't normally get a good vendor, maybe mountains of, we've heard this in like Virginia, on the west side of Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina areas where they're a little more rural, they're able to actually get these companies to come in. So instead of competing against, local town vendor 1, local town vendor 2, who come in and they got 6 people and they go their own speed, you can bring in this army, so to speak, of people, drop them off, and boom, knock out all your units in a couple of days. I had a site last year and a team came in and I think they painted 170 units going through the night for the ones they could in like a 2.5 day essentially period, and then they were out and then sent somebody back for moving day. So these people are like an army. They know what they're doing. This is what they do, and it's kind of crazy to see that evolution. So that's the vendor evolution. We have training. What's the training we have available to vendors? There's one level, right? There's training, and then there's actually getting people to utilize it, right? So this is it every year. People are like, what is this I'm using here? I think the initial feeling for a lot of them are, I don't want to learn anything. I've already been doing it this way. But I say this to all my sites every year. None of the vendors start using it and then want to bail on it, right? So like once they get in there and realize how simple our system is, we built it out to be this way. Once they get in there and can actually utilize it and see how we built it, they don't leave. We, again, Chase, Corey, and myself, actually, all of us in some capacity have worked for a vendor in addition to being, on site for Corey and myself. So we understand, the process it goes through, but what we try to encourage people is that we are actually beneficial to you all as well. This accountability works both ways. Documentation, both ways. Timestamps. I know vendors will say, I did these units, I never got paid for them, or they did say I was good with this, now they're saying I'm not, whether it's true or not, we offer documentation for the process. So here's the 3 training things we have. Lori, for those that don't know, this is our new AI, chatbot that we have. All of our users should know it. It's on every platform at this point, but it can answer basic questions. It can take care of things for you. It can lead you to the next thing, which is a support ticket where you can put that in. It comes up to our teams immediately. So if Lori can't solve it, it'll take it to support tickets. And actually training videos is last on this list, but should be first. This literally comes when you get invited to work at a site, is your training video. You can also access it from the web app. So, we start off there, but we sharpen this video every year. We reshoot it every year. And so we really enjoy trying to make it shorter and better every year and have less questions come after watching it. And we have people who literally show up on game day, watch this video, and they're using the app, which is exactly what we want. We can always get better, but we've come a long way, and we'll just continue to work on that. We just continue to sharpen. The cool thing about Lori and our training videos, of course, too, they're both, Lori, because it's AI based, you can speak to any language you want, and it will, do the work for you there. Training videos we offer in Spanish as well to really help out. And then we've got some staff that, speak Spanish as well. So that's our training side. Change order usage. Again, Chase mentioned this earlier. I'm going to kind of go into a little more depth, but the bottom line is, we covered It's $250 to clean this unit, right? And we can cover that and invoice that really easily through EasyTurn. That's our specialty, right? On EasyOS, our specialty is, running the process. Once it gets approved by the site, you're able to invoice, and here's the invoicing coming over. Now, what we were missing was just a really creative, smart way to handle change orders. Hey, this oven needs an extra clean, or I tell this story because it's happened, but somebody who unplugged a fridge and had a couple pork chops inside there, and it was one of the nastiest foam messes I've ever seen in my entire life. The smell alone would put you out when that door opened. An unplugged fridge has a weird smell in the first place. If you put some pork chops in there for a couple weeks, it's even worse. I don't need to do that to you all. But so there's extra charges that come up, right? Whether it's through carpet clean, whether it's painting. Hey, we have a ceiling paint door. So now we created this change order system a couple years ago, but we're still getting people on board. It does take back and forth of the site to put in the possible change orders and then the vendors to actually use it. But we have several sites that use both ends, as he said. We're at, I guess, 9% now, which out of a few hundred, it's still quite a few of them. But other ones, either one of the two equation, have not bought in yet enough. Our system does take buy-in, right? But it is a great way to cover everything. So now I don't only have to worry about the invoicing for the per unit cost that I have, but also everything in between. And with that comes, as I wrote here, accountability, customization. You can put in a custom price if it's a drywall repair. Obviously, it's easier to just have a set price for most items, but for that's always going to be a price range. But it shows when they were requested, when they were approved, who approved it. Everything has to be approved. So you can't just go in there and say, oh, I'm going to do all this extra work. It has to be approved by the site in order to do so. Site can also preload some of these damages during their move-out walk and say, boom, this ceiling needs to be painted, and it will show up for that vendor to then go paint that ceiling. So that's kind of how, this change order system works. It just allows us to encompass everything that would be charged throughout the process. And then some other little features we've done since even last year. People always want more and more with photos, right? All these other apps have really cool things you can do. Well, we try to get as fancy as we can. We now have the ability to add text, add arrows, shapes to your photos. And EasyOS, this helps people for things like damages, but also for change orders. You can circle what it is you're trying to work on. You might have a picture of 3 jacked up things, and you're just trying to focus on one. You can circle it, throw an arrow at it, figure it out, and then when it comes through as a request, the user will be able to see exactly what area of the picture you're focused in on. Again, streamline, speed. If we don't have speed, it's not going to work, right? So we have this speed system in here where we're able to really make sure this is a fast process for everybody. And so that we don't stop or drop the ball. Again, mobile vendor app updates. We have in here one of the biggest things we did for the vendor side. We've always had this concept of an invoice code because we want subs or other users to be able to utilize our app throughout the year, but not be able to see pricing. So it was always a login to get into the app, and then a second 4 or 3-digit code that gets you into the actual number. So now we've created a way that you can actually click on this little logo up here next to this arrow, and it will ask for your invoice code. After entering in your invoice code, you'll be able to see your pricing. And so this way you can see it in real time, like, okay, what's going on here? Oh, okay, this is the right price we talked about. Previously, you could see the pricing, but it was only in the invoice form before you submitted it. This way you're able to communicate back and forth a lot better as you're actually doing work. I think it feels a little better, too, as a vendor to be like, I'm getting paid. Why am I doing this? Oh, $400 a unit. That's why I'm doing this, right? But you're able to go in here and see the pricing. And so it's kind of like a mode that you unlock pricing. If someone else logs in as yourself, though, they won't see it. So we made sure to be smart about it'll show up on your own device. But you're able to see the pricing as time goes on. So that was a big thing. And of course, we're doing more, right? We've got a lot more of this off season that we call it. And we do listen to feedback. And that leads me to my next and final kind of point here. Vendor feedback is important. Whether you're a vendor or on site, we've sent out surveys to most everybody at this point. And we want your feedback, right? We want to know how to get better. We are not experts. All the knowledge, all the features we have been from feedback. We started off with our own knowledge of being on site, corporate level being different levels of things to build our features. And then we've sharpened all that by literally having the awesome opportunity in reality to have this, think tank of, 300 GMs, 100 regionals, 30, 40 executives that give us feedback as time goes on. We're able to do it. So we always want to get better. And again, it's not just for the sites, right? They're the ones who hire us, so to speak, because they want that clarity. But it speeds up things like go backs and everything, clarity on financials, helps them hit the mark more often. So just know that this is all part of it. We appreciate our vendors again. We really, really do. But surveys, if you all have them, fill them out. We really do look at them. We really do go through and set our development calendar and stuff based off of that. So that's what I have there. We are now going to kick it on over to Chase and the rest of the team for Q&A. And I saw you all put quite a few in the chat. So we're going to kind of let Chase quarterback it, and he can throw it off to Corey or I, because I'm sure both of us could hop in there to answer any of these, or anyone Chase wants to knock out himself as well. So that's all I got for the vendor side. Chase?
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for sticking in for this session so far. If you have any questions, we're going to get to them from top to bottom for the last 5 to 10 minutes. So first one we have, do you ever see a situation where one person can run multiple turns using EasyOS? Corey, you want to tackle that?
Yeah, so that is something that's definitely possible. We do have some sites, I have one small company in particular where the GM runs 4 sites and runs 4 turns at once. I have, kind of along those lines in the idea of remote, I've got one company, a large student housing company, that runs their remodeling projects through our system completely remote. The last project they did was flooring replace, and so they had work orders in for removing furniture, removing flooring, removing toilets, replace the flooring, reinstall toilet, reinstall furniture. And what they did that was great is they trained their vendors to just take a picture of it when you're done. When you have the flooring out there, take a picture of the subfloor so I know it's done. And then they approve it remote. And so this company is actually using, they're running 2 or 3 different remodels right now, purely remotely. And you can add your site staff, because one of the challenges she said they had was the site staff didn't really know where it was in the process. They didn't know how much was done. So she added the GMs on there, and they can watch the remodeling happen as somebody else at a different office is managing it. So you can run them remote. If you've got, one of the things I think is key is a vendor that can leave you some pictures just to make sure, okay, this is clean, this is approvable, and moving on to the next step. So that's totally possible.
Okay, it looks like you may have already answered this, Corey, but I'll let you touch back on it from Tyler. Early move-in can create some chaos for the vendor. Jumping around has time cost to our completion timetables. Any ideas on how they can manage this?
Yeah, and so we actually just built a feature in our auto scheduler for this. So what we were running into was early move-ins and the transfers, have to be done first, but they are all over the property. So it's like, okay, are we going to take a day where we send our vendor into different buildings all over the place? Well, that vendor, if they're a cleaner, has got to haul their mops and mop buckets and cleaning solution and trash bags and all that stuff unit to unit. And that does take time. That's exhausting, especially if you're going up and down floors at that point. So what we added was you can actually accompany your transfers with other additional units within that particular area, that particular building, that particular floor, to where if they do have the time, if your transfer date's out far enough that you're like, yeah, we can knock out this transfer and 3 other units while we're up here, you can add that into the auto scheduler, select which specific areas that you want it to schedule along with your early move-in or along with your transfer, and it'll do that for you.
Okay, and Brandon has a question from the vendor side. One thing we ran into several properties this year was gaining access to future schedules if our team finished a daily schedule early. It seemed that the system has having a hard time even with the GM access approvals for future schedules, which led to paper scheduling in some cases. Was this seen across the board this year? That's the first question, and definitely a great feature to keep our teams from working out of order and keeping the property on track. Just wanted to bring that up as we saw it in multiple projects. So, Lincoln, you want to touch that?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Brandon, completely fair, right? So this is where, the party's talking about, it's such a thin line, right, between letting people move ahead because they're, like I mentioned earlier, 2.5 days to knock out all that area. But then we do run into things where sites are like, hey, we actually want them to only do this many a day, right? So how do we cover it for all of them? So we created this early request feature where you can then go to the future and request another handful of units. And then it's up to the site, right? We try to stay out of it, just give them tools and stay out of it. But we say, you can request it. The GM can then approve it in there. I think I'll take some of that on us. Some of our companies, we didn't train as well enough to where to find those alerts. They come and pop up, but they have to then go in there and approve them. So not every site uses that. A lot of them just stick to their daily. But, as time went on, we made sure to start mentioning it more. Definitely made a note to really harp on that as it gets to be a more and more popular feature that we have. But yeah, the early request is a big part there. Corey, do you have
We
something?
do also have the option sometimes, you may or may not know, but I always suggest that as a vendor, you can get on the app and you can email yourself the entire upcoming schedule. So if you are going into turn the week before and you want to know day by day, what do I have to get done? What about what bedrooms and what units on which dates? On the app, there is if you go to reports and you hit upcoming, it'll email you an Excel breakdown of the entire turn for that site. And you can look at that information and just make sure that, if they told you we're doing 10 units a day, you can look on there and be like, okay, they were right, we're doing 10. We should be good. So I highly suggest that as well prior to turn for the vendor side.
Yep, it's a great tool to work alongside of it. I will say our caveat to that every time is that sites still change things some last minute, but it's a really great one to know your basic structure. So we tell people, please use the the app site as a Bible, but that's a great reference, right? To say this is about what we have. So that is a nice thing to have alongside of it. But again, we do leave it up to the GMs if they want to make some last minute changes. So don't be like, hey, the paper says this. That's our caveat. That's going to be most accurate in the app, but it does allow you to see that. And we do this to prevent cases like we've had, brought up to us before about someone going into a unit that's still occupied because they don't move out till the next day morning. And so therefore it was scheduled the next day. So, don't hop in there early because there's tenants there or something, right? So that's that portion. The second part you had, I guess you're just asking if it was common across the board. We saw it in pockets. Some of it we were able to go through and knock out a little early, but we did see it in pockets as it came through. And so you say you saw it in multiple projects. I'm guessing in multiple projects you probably were under the same org possibly, and so some orgs we mentioned it better, some later. Obviously, once we heard it, we started mentioning it to everybody and sending out information about it. But existing users knew, newer users didn't know where to find it. It alerted them, but they didn't know where to find to approve those. So that process should be a lot easier. We also added a new monitor somewhere for that as well, somewhere on the app, I think.
And one last tool we added as well, because you probably saw it because you were ahead. A lot of people were ahead. It was awesome. Requesting early access is great. It's one unit at a time. But there were people that were so far ahead, they're like, I want to move my entire turn up 3 days. We built a tool for that as well. Because we saw that everybody was ahead, the property now in the bulk editor can grab groups of work orders or all of their work orders and then select a date range if they want to move them ahead because we're up or we're ahead of the pace. That's great. Now they can move it all at once to where maybe we can fix you having to request early access every time. Just go to the GM and be like, hey, give me tomorrow's work now, and I'll do it. And they can go ahead and do it with just a couple clicks.
Okay, and we have another good question from Helping Hands. Properties that have the best turns, what do they do differently than the ones you see that struggle? I'll let Corey take that first, and then the same thing for vendors. I'll let Lincoln take that.
I don't want to take your thunder here, Lincoln, but I think the biggest thing that when we hear a GM say it was hard, and we're like, okay, what was hard? They're like, my vendors didn't use it, and it's like, yes, if your vendors don't use this, you lose the real time reporting, you lose the ability to walk right behind them and make sure that your staff's not there all night. And you're sitting there clicking and moving those along when that's what they should be doing there. So, I know our vendors can do it. We have absolute proof that it can be done. Sometimes it's just a conversation. Sometimes it's showing them, hey, this is all you have to do. Bring me your phone. I'll log you in. Just hit start and complete. And that's it. Once we get a vendor in there, 99% of the time, they not only do they use it, they like it because it does have some accountability for them as well. So I would say, any sites that struggled when we would go look at their transition log and see, okay, who's moving these work orders through the system? It's the site. And it's because the vendors didn't use it. I love our vendors, but as somebody that has vendors that work for the property, if I have to put it in the contract, I will. But it's not something that should be optional, because once it's optional and you give them the option to opt out, you have taken over the work for them that they could be doing for you. So I know it sounds harsh, but it's not hard. It's just getting them in there. So that's the main thing I heard from the site side.
Yep. And I'll just say, he pretty much nailed it right. It's just, look, if we say, hey, we got something new to show you, basic connotation across many, many people are immediately, no, shut it down, right? Like, they don't want to, even before it comes out, right? So we know there's some of that in there. But Corey really is right. When people start using it, they understand the value in it. They probably sigh when they hear about it, but then they're in there. But then again, it's not only just the invoicing, but even if you're a vendor who's using it kind of, but the site isn't really walking properly to do go backs, that's where I'll pick on the sites a little bit. If they're not really walking and putting their go backs through there, that's what really keeps everybody engaged and keeps it so much faster. I use this example a lot, but if Chase is my vendor and he's down, let's say I have big hallways, he's down the hallway, I'm over here, walking his unit, and I mark, there's some, gummy stuff on the mirror, and I submit it right then and hit send. His phone's gonna hit while he's in the room. He's gonna look at it. We got to go back for 312. Hey, Corey, will you grab a razor blade and a rag and go knock out this mirror? And that's the easiest time to do a go back, right? I'm gonna get passionate about this, but what's frustrating is waiting 3 or 4 days, then getting a huge list of go backs outside of our system, and now you got to go walk every unit one by one again. But if you're really in the flow, you can. I always tell people this. I'm so serious about it. Though. If you lean into our system and utilize the go backs as it's in our system, things will not stay wrong early. And also, you're teaching your vendor, again, as I mentioned before, what's the pet peeve, what's something you all are missing. You do that early and often enough, guess what? There's not going to be gummy stuff on any mirrors the rest of that building, because they've learned early on, okay, crap, they're checking mirrors, therefore we should check mirrors. So I'll say the ones that do better, they buy in, right? Go ahead, buy in, see how it goes. I know it's just for one job and you've got 1,000 jobs. It might feel that way. But first of all, our hope, of course, is you're going to see it a lot more often as we grow and grow. But it gives peace to them, and it really can help you all defend yourselves in situations as well to say, we really did do this work. So buy-in is the biggest difference between people who are successful and not successful. If you don't want it to work, you can find every excuse in the world not to make it work. If you can see the pros of it and get in there, you'll get to see the benefits of the system, which we admit we're always going to look to build more and more into, but there is benefit there. I think that is shown through our success and longevity we've had so far.
All right, and last question comes from Kyron. Is there a way that we can add the option to add multiple transfers / early move-in dates into the auto scheduler? And I'll link, Corey, you can take that.
I feel like you set that up for us. We just built that also in the auto scheduler. So there were a couple challenges with the auto scheduler last year that we noticed and already have built. We just need to push the update. The first one being individual day work orders. So like if your move out is on July 31st and you want to do trash out work orders and that's the only day you want to do it, you couldn't do it last year in the auto scheduler. You had to jump out and bulk schedule those. Same with your sparkles. If you want your sparkles to be the last 3 days of turn, you couldn't do it. It had to follow the last service. So it was giving you sparkles to do on the 8th for units that weren't being moved in until the 16th. Well, those are going to get dusty again. We don't want to do that. So we added the ability for standalone work orders. The other thing that we had questions on and we just did is you can essentially pick out separate groups of units or floors or buildings and schedule them differently than other separate groups of units or floors or buildings. And that's where this is going to come in is, we did have some sites that were like, I have, a big move out on July 25th and I've got a big move out on July 31st. And then the people that move out on the 25th move in the 10th and the people that move out the 31st move in the 12th. I need to schedule those separately. We didn't have that option. Now we do. Now you do have the ability to schedule different groups, almost essentially a different turn within a turn, based on your need, based on who's moving out early, who's moving out late. Transfer dates, they can be separate on each one. Another thing that we added, which seems basic, and I kind of kick myself for us not doing it previously, is transfer date initially was 1 day. But that's not always the case. You could say, hey, our transfer date's a weekend. Pick up your keys on Friday. Give me your next keys on Sunday. We didn't have that. We do have that now. So there will be, I caution you that when you look at the auto scheduler here, hopefully soon, it may look a little overwhelming at the beginning. We are going to add an assistant that can help you talk you through it, basically. But yeah, it's going to have a lot more flexibility. Lincoln always liked to say it worked for 90% of properties 90% of the time. Now we're trying to get it for 98% of the properties 98% of the time, and some of these fixes I think will help with that.
All right, and I think that's it. We appreciate you guys for jumping on and listening to Turn Data with us, and excited to keep working with you. Always, our emails are open, so feel free to contact us if you have any other questions. And the surveys, we sent out the surveys, so if you have any feedback that you want to give us, please, guys, hit us up. And we're always working on our product daily. So thank you.
Thank y'all.